Well, welcome as we continue to read through the book of Ecclesiastes together. Today we're going to be reading through Ecclesiastes chapter 8. As Solomon continued to investigate the value of wisdom, he came face to face with the problem of evil in this world, a problem that no intelligent person can honestly avoid. People every single day wrestle with the problem of how a good God can allow evil in the world, and on the flip side, if there is no God, then where do all the good in the world come from? All the good people, all the good things. In spite of the evil and brokenness in this world, there are abundant, beautiful, and enjoyable things and moments that we do enjoy along the way as well. Solomon didn't deny the existence of God or the reality of evil. He did not limit the power of God. Solomon solved the problem of evil by affirming the facts of life and seeing them all in their proper perspective. One major source of evil in this fallen world is the sinfulness of humankind. We have helped create problems in this world in one way or another along the way. Adam and Eve turned away from God first, and we continually follow in their footsteps. When given the same choices they were given, we do exactly what they did. So we can't really be too hard on them.
No, not too much.
We can't blame Adam and Eve for their sins because we constantly choose sin and selfishness over God in our lives too. God cannot be blamed for that. That is our choices. He gives us a choice, and it's up to us to choose who we are going to follow and who we are going to trust every single day. God doesn't force himself on us. When we start world wars, God doesn't stop the war because he's not the one who started the war. That was our choices. We choose war, and God's greatest judgment is to let us have our way. It's us who chooses sin, and we pay the earthly consequences for those sin choices. In this chapter, Solomon explores the problems of evil in this world by examining authority, injustice, and the mysteries within this world. Solomon looks at the great qualities of wisdom as well as its limitations within our broken world. We'll go ahead and get started in verse 1.
How wonderful to be wise, to analyze and interpret things. Wisdom lights up a person's face, softening its harshness. Obey the king, since you vowed to God that you would. Don't try to avoid doing your duty, and don't stand with those who plot evil, for the king can do whatever he wants. His command is backed by great power. No one can resist or question it. Those who obey him will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and a way to do what is right. For there is a time and a way for everything, even when a person is in trouble. Indeed, how can people avoid what they don't know is going to happen? None of us can hold back our spirit from departing. None of us has the power to prevent the day of our death. There is no escaping that obligation, that dark battle. And in the face of death, wickedness will certainly not rescue the wicked. I have thought deeply about all that goes on here under the sun, where people have the power to hurt each other.
Millions of good people have been oppressed in one way or another by bad rulers. Solomon himself had been guilty of putting people under his heavy yoke of bondage, which 1 Kings 4 actually also reveals. Eastern rulers in his time and culture held the power of life and death in their hands, and they would often use that power excessively. They weren't elected by people, and they didn't answer to people either. People's main goal in life was to avoid the wrath of the king. There were times when an evil king would command his servant to do something evil, something the servant did not want to do. Solomon, in his wisdom, concludes that there are 4 possible approaches to take in response to this problem. The servant can disobey and do what is right, give up their position in office and walk away, stand up for what is right, or pause and discern what the right thing to do is and how to do it in the exact right time. A wise officer of the king would be true to their oath of allegiance to the king, which would have been vowed before God, who is the true source of all authority in the world. To disobey the orders of the king would mean to break their promise to the ruler and essentially to God as well. And serious consequences would follow their disobedience. The king's word would have had more power than the word of his servant, and the king's word would prevail over the servant's word always. Nobody in this time and culture could safely question the ruler's decisions because the king could do no wrong. To avoid punishment, an officer should obey orders. Disobedience could literally lead to their death. The day is coming when all the wickedness in this world is going to be judged, and the kings and the rulers of this world will not escape God's coming wrath of judgment for their evil doings in this world. But what happens when a servant really can't obey the ruler of a king? A morally just officer could choose to leave the king's presence in disgust and give up their position in office. This may not be a safe action, but more than one person has quit a job or resigned from office to maintain integrity. There are times when it is better to lose income or even your life, if it comes to that, than to lose moral integrity and character before the Lord. When it comes to matters of conscience and the law, Peter directs us in Acts 5:29 to always obey God over mankind. It's important to stand up for what is right in God's eyes above all else. We have an obligation to obey our conscience according to God's lead and direction and his word and his will. How we express our disagreements with leadership and authority figures does require wisdom and grace as well, though. We shouldn't be resisting the law and protesting every time we have a difference of opinion in the world. It wouldn't be wise to join a revolt against a ruler. We need to ask God's wisdom above human opinion in every situation. Discernment is vital. The wise servant understands time and judgment must be considered in everything we do and say. It takes discernment to know the right thing to do and say at the right time. Overreacting and storming out of rooms doesn't usually make situations any better. It usually only makes them worse. God's wisdom helps us understand people and situations and helps us figure out the right thing to do at the right time. And he gives us his spirit within us to help direct our steps. It's up to us to pause and surrender to his lead in every situation, in every moment. In Daniel 1, as a prisoner of war in a Gentile foreign land, Daniel refused to eat the unclean food that was set before him by the king. He didn't make a big scene or riot the fences of the king. He instead exercised gentleness and wisdom by suggesting that the guards simply permit him and his friends to experiment with a different diet option. The plan worked. David and his friends not only kept themselves ceremonially clean before the Lord, but they ended up being promoted into the king's court as a result. The apostles suffered for their faith repeatedly, but showed spiritual discernment and respect towards those in authority. The Lord honored them for their persecution that they suffered for their faith. We have the option of disobeying, running away, defying orders, and even fighting back. However, before we act, we need to pray and we need to ask for God's wisdom in the situation. We need to ask for discernment and for the right words and the right actions in the right time. It's not easy to be a passionate Christ follower in this complicated, evil world, but we can ask for God's wisdom and receive his wisdom by faith. The devil may have been handed dominion over the earth temporarily, but we are also given the spirit of Jesus, the very spirit and power that literally raised Jesus from the dead. And that is the power that resides in us, and that power is greater than the powers of this world. Because of Jesus and his power within us, we have the strength to overcome and push back the evil forces because they cannot stand against Jesus. We have to do it all according to God's will and discernment. It is really hard to make decisions. It's even harder to make the right decision in the midst of difficulties in life. How do you know if you are making the right choice, doing the right thing, or moving in the right direction? Every day is filled with thousands of decisions and their responsive consequences, both good and bad. We have to decide everything from who to marry and then to what to eat today that will best nourish our bodies that God gave us. We literally have to make decisions every day.
One decision seems a little more important than the other. But...
We decide what jobs to take and how long to stay in them. We decide what cities to live in and what to drive in that city, or even whether we're going to drive at all. Life is a collection of our decisions and the consequences of those decisions that we make every single day. Sometimes decisions can be paralyzing and we end up stuck. We don't know where to go, what to do, or how to do it. Solomon assures us in these verses that the wise heart will follow the Lord and know the right time and the right way to go, because there is a right time and a right way for everything. There's a right way and a right time for every decision. But what happens in our humanity and our anxiety around the big decisions weighs heavily on us because we don't know what's coming tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen. What if we make a decision that seems obviously right, but in the end, the result becomes the wrong thing? Future uncertainty can cause present anxiety that paralyzes us when we're trying to make decisions I'm terrible at making decisions. But God promised us his spirit would reside within us and lead us and guide us. It's up to us to trust in him and his wisdom, and it's up to us to follow his lead. If we aren't spending time in prayer and in his word and in his presence, we won't know his voice and we won't feel his lead. If we do follow Jesus and let him lead, his wisdom in action will lead us to his success and victory. He will show us how to make the right move at the right time in the midst of a world that makes absolutely no sense at all. He did it for Daniel. He did it for Joseph. He did it for Joshua. He did it for Deborah. He did it for Jeremiah. He did it for Ezekiel. He did it for John. He did it for Peter. He did it for Paul. He can go on and on and on because the list goes on and on and on. And he does it for us today as well.
Yeah.
Life is frustrating, and anyone who says that they have it all figured out is a liar. However, in the midst of a frustrating world, Jesus promised us that he will lead the way if we're willing to follow him. There is anxiety around decisions because of the difficulties of the world we live in, but Jesus promises he will be our peace if we trust in him. We need to rely on God's wisdom. We need to seek the Lord and trust him for our next best step. He will direct us to do that next best step, the next, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And through Jesus, we have access to God, who knows everything and has been in every tomorrow. Our knowledge may be limited, but we have access to an unlimited God who loves us more than we can comprehend. All we have to do is abide in Jesus, rest in him, trust him, and do the next best step. God's wisdom is the greatest wisdom, and he will lead us to our very best in him if we're willing to surrender all and simply let him.
Yep.
And that leads us to verse 10.
I've seen wicked people buried with honor, yet they were the very ones who frequented the temple and are now praised in the same city where they committed their crimes. This too is meaningless. When a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it is safe to do wrong. But even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those that fear God will be better off. The wicked will not prosper, for they do not fear God. Their days will never grow long like the evening shadows. And this is not all that is meaningless in our world. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they were good. This is so meaningless.
Wisdom can help a person avoid the king's wrath, but it can't enable a person to understand fully why God deals with people as he does. In spite of the good laws and people who seek to enforce these laws, there is still more injustice in this world than we realize or care to admit. A jury is really just 12 people who decide which party has the better attorney. God is patient towards sinners and doesn't always judge sin immediately. However, God's mercies aren't an excuse for rebellion. The wicked will eventually be judged, and the righteous will eventually be rewarded. It is better to fear the Lord and live pursuing his holiness than compromising with the world around us. God sees and knows all, always.
Yep.
In the end, God will bring forth his justice. It is a promise. It may look like sin might be prevailing here at times, but it really, truly isn't. It may look like justice loses here, but it really, truly won't. God will uncover every secret deed on this planet, and he will bring it all to judgment. Jesus is returning, and he is returning with his judgment, and a righteous, holy kingdom will come with him. If we repent and surrender our hearts and lives to Jesus, there actually will be absolutely no sin to be found in us. There will be no sin to be judged. Mm-hmm. We are in Jesus, and we live under his righteousness. We will live in his glorious presence when he returns. Until Jesus returns, there will continue to be injustices in this world, and we need to cling to Jesus with all of our guts until he returns to set it all right again. And we'll continue in verse 15.
So I recommend having fun, because there is nothing better for people in this world than to eat, drink, and enjoy life. That way they will experience some happiness along with all the hard work God gives them under the sun. In my search for wisdom and in my observation of people's burdens here on earth, I discovered that there is ceaseless activity, day and night. I realized that no one can discover everything God is doing under the sun. Not even the wisest people discover everything, no matter what they claim.
No matter what they claim. The person who has to know everything or who thinks they know everything is going to be disappointed in this world. Any podcast we listen to that claims to know it all or have it all figured out is a bold-faced liar. Solomon tried to understand wisdom and found it utterly exhausting. We are limited in our human knowledge. We lack knowledge to know what will happen in the future, and we lack the power to change any outcome. We are limited in our human existence. Solomon concluded that humankind can't find out everything that is done under the sun. We can solve small puzzles here and there, but we cannot truly comprehend the totality of things or explain all that God is doing in any given moment.
It's like a Rubik's Cube for me. I can't solve that thing.
A lot of people, some people Trevor can do it in like less than 2 minutes.
I can do that, but I have to take the stickers off and put them back on.
Yeah, that's not the right way to do it.
Who says?
I don't know. The people who make the Rubik's Cubes. The Rubik's Cubes commanders. Anyway, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, and he reveals what he wants to us as he wishes, according to his perfect will for our lives. God doesn't expect us to know the unknowable, but he does expect us to learn all we can and obey what he teaches and reveals. The more we obey, the more he will teach us. A confession of ignorance is the first step toward true knowledge. The more we learn, the more we discover we really don't know anything. The person who wants to learn God's truth has to have honesty and humility before the Lord. Solomon concludes that it is best to fear God and accept life as God's special gift, knowing that he has all things to enjoy in our lives. Even the hard things will turn to his glory and our good. We should receive each day's joys as God's good gifts and rejoice in them. Instead of complaining about what we don't have, we give thanks for what we do have and enjoy it. Instead of rejecting wisdom, Solomon concludes that wisdom is important to the person who wants to get the most out of this life. Wisdom can't explain everything or solve every problem, but it can help us to use discernment in our decisions and actions. If we only look at life under the sun, we are left with uncertainty, randomness, and limited knowledge. We are stuck. When you look beyond the sun and see Jesus, you can lean into the future, knowing that the future is secure in his mighty hands. Through Jesus, we have true and living hope. As we surrender our hearts and lives to Jesus and let him embrace us, we will find that we become more and more steady in his presence and less concerned about the future. Ecclesiastes reveals the truth of life under the sun, but the Gospels reveal Jesus and the hope that we have beyond the heavens. We can choose to release control to Jesus and rest in him now and for all eternity. His goodness and mercies will follow us all of our days, and he has good plans for our lives. He created us for his victory and his good, and he wants us to flourish.
Yep.
It's up to us to choose him.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is where we will stop for today. We hope you all are having a glorious day in the Lord.